4. No, I keep screwing it up here. My math is so bad. 4 times 9, 18, 36. No, so more than that. I guess, yeah, it's 11. 110 kills to cap your bonus? Even more than that. That's ridiculous. You're simply not going to get it. It's never going to happen. And worst of all is, even if you did sit there and farm it, you'd be spending your whole game farming minions to max out your Warmogs. Terrible item. The only thing it's got going for it is the fact that it's a lot of health in a single slot. Okay? But you don't need that much health. Again, build your Frozen Mallet. Build your Banshee's Veil. Build an Aegis of the Legion. Build a Leviathan. Already, you're sitting around with so much health and you haven't wasted all this money on it. The only time the Warmogs I can sort of see is if you're playing Mordekaiser, or maybe Mundo, who pay health to use their abilities, in which case it's kind of nice to start with a Regrowth Pendant, and the problem is if you start with a Regrowth Pendant, you've got nothing good that you can build it into, really, except the Force of Nature, which I'll talk about later. So in then, it might be like, oh, I'll build a Warmogs, but really, I mean, you're building a Warmogs because you started with a Regrowth Pendant, and that's a terrible excuse. You're better off starting with the Doran's Shield and get some health regen that way. Or you could start with the Rejuvenation Bead, and, you know, hopefully upgrade that to something more useful. Oh, I gotta move around before I get disconnected again. Warmogs is a terrible item. If you got more questions about it, ask it in the comments. I will talk about the math. I will justify this, but you will never break even. For the amount of money you spend on this, you will end up with less health. Even when it's maxed out, you will end up with less health than you could have spent if you just bought health items directly. Okay? That's the simple truth of it. Next item on the list. So I skipped that row, so I'm going to go back to it in a second. Actually, I'm going to talk about the Rod of Ages first. Rod of Ages is a stupendously good item. One, I've already talked about the Catalyst Protector. It's a good item on its own, and this is used as an upgrade for it. Awesome. Blasting Wand, obviously really good, lots of ability power. You combine it to the Rod of Ages, you end up with a bunch of health, a bunch of mana, a bunch of ability power. Super good. It costs you 850 to upgrade your Rod of Ages, and that gives you 10 ability power for free, and 90 health for free, and 100 mana for free. That doesn't quite compensate for it, but it's the passive. You get extra health, mana, and ability power every minute, and it does cap, but if you do, and it hits the cap after 15 minutes, but if you do the math, you only need 2 minutes before the Rod of Ages, the cost of the Rod of Ages, is made up for. You break even after 2 minutes, and then after that, everything is just gravy. So ideally, you do want to build your Rod of Ages as soon as possible. Obviously, it's probably the first big item you want to complete. It's the first item you want to complete, but you don't necessarily have to rush super fast. As long as you build it before, say, the 25-minute mark, you're in good shape. If you can build it before the 20-minute mark, you're in super good shape. And what the Rod of Ages does, it makes your caster super, super tough. You end up with a bunch of health, and you're much more survivable. In fact, when I play caster, when I play Heimerdinger, for example, who's one of my favorite characters, I rush the Rod of Ages first, and then I get myself a Riley's Crystal Scepter, and I end up with so much health, I am the least squishy caster there ever was. People can't kill me. You know, if there's a melee guy who like charges at me, and especially if I've got my grenade up, it's just ludicrous. I just tear him apart, and he never has a chance to kill me once I've got those 2 items. Obviously, they're quite pricey, but as Heimerdinger, the advantage is you can farm really, really quickly, so that's great. But yeah, Rod of Ages, super awesome, really good on so many casters, really good on so many support characters, and even on like AP tanks. Like you get this on Nunu, get this on Cho'Gath if you're playing the AP version of him, or Sion. I think Sion can do it too. I'm not sure. I don't really play Sion. You know, super, super good item. If you're new to this game and you like playing casters, just build a Rod of Ages first. Literally before anything else, you'll be awesome. What I usually do is I build Catalyst, and then I get the basic boots of speed, I finish the Rod of Ages, and then I get my Sorcerer's boots, and then I'm just laughing the rest of the game. Okay, Randuin's Omen. Brand new item. I don't have a ton of experience with it yet, but I can tell you it's a really good item. First of all, it upgrades from a Heart of Gold. Heart of Gold was already kind of a good item. The worst thing you could say about the Heart of Gold is It sucks because it doesn't upgrade into anything. Now it does. Interestingly enough, you sort of don't want to upgrade your Heart of Gold too quickly because you like the gold generation. So this item is not necessarily one you want to rush, although it's very good. So there's a little bit of back and forth. It also upgrades from Warden's Mail, which is a great armor that gives you lots of armor and makes it so that when you get hit, you slow people down. I'll talk about this item again later, but it's a good item, especially against physical people. And then what you get when you combine it, you get something that gives you good health, lots of armor, some health regen, which is, again, not awesome, but it sure as heck doesn't hurt. It gives you a passive, which gives you 15% cooldown reduction. Amazing. You still get the chance to, when you get hit, to slow the attacker, which is great. And you can activate it. Oh, I gotta move again. You can activate it to do an AoE attack speed slow around you. And it's a 1 minute cooldown. It will be up all the time. And this makes you really effective. It's really good in team fights because you just AoE slow everyone on the enemy team. It's not bad solo. This is a fantastic item, and it builds from your Heart of Gold. There's a lot of people who will be building a Heart of Gold as a first item on a tank, and then upgrading to the Randuin's Omen later. I guarantee it, especially against physical people. If the enemy carries are all like spellcasters, then it's not a good item. It doesn't give you any magic resist. The attack speed slow is not really going to do anything to them. But you know, if you're up against Jax and I don't know, maybe a Garen, amazing item. Okay. Getting down to the bottom, I've talked about the Frozen Mallet already. Last thing to talk about is Trinity Force. Trinity Force does a little bit of everything. It's a great item. The only downside about it is it's quite pricey. A lot of heroes, though, will benefit from Sheen, and I'll talk about Sheen later. But if you're on a hero that gets a Sheen, because it's good for you, then a lot of times you will be upgrading to the Trinity Force, because Trinity Force is just a great item. It uses Phage, which we know is good. It uses Zeal, which I will talk about later, but Zeal's an amazing item. And then the upgrade cost is like 300 gold. So you get 3 amazing items, you pay virtually nothing to upgrade it into a super, super good item and free up a lot of slots. The Trinity Force is a no-brainer if you are going down that route. It gives you some damage, some ability power, attack speed, crit chance, move speed. It does give you ability power, but you don't generally build this for magic people. You build this for physical people who have an ability that can spam a lot on a short cooldown. I used to get it all the time on Blitzcrank with his punch, because his punch gets down to like a 3 or 4 second cooldown. Obviously a perfect candidate for Trinity Force. And that is the health, although we've done a lot of other items because a lot of items give health, so they double up here. Going down to Magic Resist. Maybe I'll break it up so that I'll do all the defense items this time, and then I'll do the... there's not even that much. I'll just muscle through it. Magic Resist. Null Magic Mantle, not worth talking about on its own because it's just a basic item. While it's cheap enough to start with it, you'll never want to start with it. Null Magic Mantle is only worth talking about in the context of the items that it builds, so I will only talk about those items. Same thing for Negatron Cloak, which is a more expensive version of the mantle. Again, you're only gonna buy this to upgrade it to other items. I mean, it's good on its own, of course, but you're gonna build something with it, so we'll just talk about those. Chalice of Harmony. This is one of those items that actually starts with a lot of debates in the forums. Now, what it is at its core is a mana regen item. A lot of heroes may start with a Meki Pendant, and they will then upgrade it into a Chalice of Harmony. Because, frankly, there's not that many things you can upgrade a Meki Pendant into. Your only 2 reasonable options are either the Chalice or the Fiendish Codex. So the Chalice has the same base mana regen as the Meki Pendant, slightly bit more. And of course it's got magic resistance, which is basically just from the mantle, but a tiny bit more. And actually it's not bad because you get the magic resist, you get the regen, and for only 100 you combine them, so you're saving a slot, you get a tiny bit more. For the cost, it's a very, very good item. And then it gives you a passive, which is the lower your mana, the faster you regenerate. By itself, it doesn't actually give that much regeneration. You sort of, to really make it worthwhile, you kind of need to combo it with other mana regen items. And mana regen is, like health regen, is not always an item that helps you win fights. So this combos well if you've got any other magic regen, which, like for example, when I play Sivir, I get some mana regen runes in my blue slots, and then I get the Chalice of Harmony, and then I've got enough mana regen that I can spam my stuff all the time. You could combo it with this sort of Tear of the Goddess Archangel Staff and then get ridiculous mana regen, although potentially that's overkill. There's some back and forth. It is a decent item, and early on, when you are a new character and you don't have a lot of mastery points and you don't have a lot of runes available to you, you're going to be hurting for mana regen. You won't know how to conserve mana. One of the things you learn as you get more and more experience is not to spam your spells too often, to save your mana, and so it's not as critical, but it's a good item. I'm just going to leave it at that. I talked too much about this one. Mercury's Treads, you know what? I'm just going to talk about this later when I talk about boots. Spirit Visage.